Hi, my name is Gabrielle Lolley, and this is for the Higher Education Finance class at Georgia Southern University. My presentation will be on the rising costs of higher education. So, in this presentation, first I will give an introduction of the topic and why I have chosen it. Then I will go into the impact on higher education finance. Then we will review the implications and recommendations for higher education leadership. I will give my critical reaction to the topic, and then I'll list the relevant literature that I used to develop this presentation. This topic is significant to me because of my career choice. I have stumbled into the world of student accounts, and the rising cost of higher education is something that impacts me every day. I am currently the Assistant Director of Student Account Services at Georgia Tech, and my primary responsibility is to collect tuition and fees from students and work with them in doing so with their families, with the Office of Financial Aid, and other positions and departments on campus. I am also a current student here at Georgia Southern, and although I'm in an assistance program through the University System of Georgia, I am always aware of the cost of my program in case I ever do have to make payments. Finally, I am the parent of future college students, and I will have to pay for college one day, so it's important for me to keep up with the trends in higher education and how they will affect my children. So what are the causes of the rising cost of higher education? At the core of higher education finance, it's tuition and fees. Without students attending and paying these fees through tuition and mandatory fees, there is no way that the university can exist. So as the cost of education rises, we have to look at what the causes and effects are. So some of the causes that I have found during my research are state appropriations that are being cut or remaining flat. As there is little federal involvement with institutions besides federal financial aid and research funds, the weight falls on states to assist institutions. State appropriations for the institutions and state scholarships for students. Throughout the years, state appropriations, they don't typically rise, so they're either cut or they remain flat, and institutions are left to find ways to make up for that difference in funding. Also, as new programs are created, including the large increase in online enrollment, for example, there are needs for new staff, new faculty, and resources that come along with that. This could include software, different platforms, positions, and space. So the increase in student enrollment is a direct cause in the rising cost of higher education. Like I said, there comes space with that when it comes to student enrollment. So capital projects, maintaining what we already have as far as the buildings that are on campus, the growth and the need for new buildings, for new facilities on campus to accommodate all of the students that are coming. These are things that drive the cost of higher education higher. So now that we know the causes, what are the effects of the rise of higher education costs? There are three that I have found to be tremendous when I looked and did the research here. So in the journal, Borrowers with Large Balances, Rising Student Debt and Falling Repayment Plans, the author states that there has been a surge in student loan defaults, and for the borrowers, it was not the size of their debts, which were small, but their ability to pay. So I'm looking at the increase in student loan and personal debt. Many of these borrowers had dropped out of or attended programs that failed to lead to decent jobs or were economically disadvantaged to start with. So as the costs rise for higher education, students have to figure out how will they pay. So this means that sometimes there is an increase in student loan debt, obviously, because you're getting federal loans, but then also personal debt. Is it borrowing from banks? There are lots of private loans that are coming out to pay for students. There's credit card debt that's being increased because students have to find a way to pay. These are the effects of the rising costs. Also, there's a decrease in graduation and retention rates. This tells us that as education costs rise, students and families have to find ways to pay, and that often involves looking to see if it's worth it to take out this personal debt. There are students that begin degree programs but are unable to finish them due to financial hardships. In July of 2018, Maldonado wrote in Forbes that according to the National Center for Education Statistics, The average for all four-year institutions come out to over $26,000 per year, bringing the total cost of attendance to over $104,000 in 4 years, while the same four-year degree in 1989 was only $26,000. While students may be able to attend early on due to scholarships and perhaps institutional funding, when that runs out, they're forced to make decisions about finishing their degrees or possibly going to work. Finally, institutions begin to accept more out-of-state students to increase revenue, and this has to be monitored closely to ensure that residents have the same opportunities to attend and afford college. So these are the causes and the effects of the rising cost of higher education. Some of the recommendations that I have found for higher education leaderships include finding creative ways to increase funding for student assistance. This includes institutional aid, capital campaigns, having a strong Office of Development that is constantly seeking new donors, depending on alumni, engaging them to assist the students. Also, offering financial literacy to students to teach them about borrowing power, about what it means to take out these student loans, providing counseling for loans, entrance and exit, teaching about credit while they're in school so that they understand that the choices they make today greatly influence their lives tomorrow. Also, providing tuition calculators for students and families that provide complete cost of attendance. Although the cost of attendance that are used at schools are estimates, many families use them for financial planning. So it is vitally important for institutions to look at these annually to make sure that they are including what's needed. At my current institution, they list miscellaneous costs, the cost for books, housing, tuition, and fees, and they come very close to what students actually pay in a semester. Finally, I believe that higher education leadership should develop programming to find students with financial hardships in the early stages so that they can step in and provide assistance. If students are having trouble with degree completion because they don't know how they'll pay, this is a great opportunity for leadership to determine who these students are, not just for the sake of the student completing, but also for retention and graduation for the institution. I provided an example here that interested me the first time that I heard about its creation. The SunTrust Financial Management Center of Georgia State University. So how does this work? This is the first of its kind in the nation. It serves as an early alert system for financial risk, meaning that it helps students at risk map out a financial plan for continuing their education early on. So this center essentially keeps an eye out for students who seem to be at risk of not finishing because of financial hardship, and they step in early, and that makes a difference. They act as a student financial counseling center. They also work with the community to offer community outreach programs, especially for low-income middle and high school students and their families. And they also serve as a model for other institutions who were looking to do exactly what we talked about in the previous slide. This is an example of leadership that took a stand early on to figure out how can we get in front of the issue of our students not finishing and what are those issues. And when they determined that they were financial, they decided to partner with SunTrust and develop a center that would assist these students, teach them, grow them in the area of finances, and assist them in finishing their degree program. My critical reaction to this topic, since I said it's very important to me because I do work in student accounts, is that institutions should continue to find ways to assist students with affordability. It is time to be creative. We've got to find ways to help these students finish school. Talking to students every day about how they will pay their bill, are there payment plans available, assisting them with getting in contact with the Office of Financial Aid. Those are things that I love to do because I want to see our students succeed. So as I look at the statistics and the amount of money that it takes to finish, it is overwhelming at times, but I know that there are ways that institutions can step in and do it. That is why I love Georgia State's model of creating that financial management center. Another thing that always affects me when I hear about this topic is just the impact on families when making acceptance decisions. A lot of students do not go to their first choice because they cannot afford it. And I hate to hear that because students work so hard to get into their top choice school all through high school, only to find out that there's not enough institutional aid or not enough scholarships to be able to help them afford it. And then if they do get there, a lot of times they cannot finish because the money has run out. And then finally, student accounts and financial aid offices are in need of resources to accommodate these students. The numbers sometimes are overwhelming with the amount of students that need help, processing applications, completing verifications, looking through tax documents, developing payment plans, working together, even during the hardest and longest time periods of the year, can be a challenge for these offices. But we have to do it, and we do it because we love it, because we want to see these students succeed. But that does not take away from the fact that resources are needed. So my reaction to this is I would love to see a way that whether federally or state or institution-wide, that we are able to step in, grab these students by the hand, and help them figure out how to finish school without taking on too much debt that they can't handle later, and just without having to worry and stress about finances when they already have to complete a degree. A quote that I saw while I was studying for this presentation said, "As a smaller share of Americans reach their parents' level of education, they can look forward to lower incomes than previous generations, and that means they'll have less money to pay tuition for their children." This is why I feel so strongly about it. I know that there's more that we can do, and as long as I work in the field of student accounts, I won't stop until I figure out how to get there. Here are the articles and the journals that I use for this presentation. Thank you for your time. I hope that this resonates with you as it does with me, and I appreciate you for listening.